Hey kittens, it is Sugar and I'm here to do another video. So I wanted to talk to you today about being a plus size burlesque performer. I get lots of questions about burlesque and I get lots of questions about being plus size and doing burlesque. And I realized that I've never done a video talking about my experiences as a plus size burlesque performer. When I first got into burlesque, there was no other plus size girls doing this. There was another performer who was a fire performer, and she was a curvier girl, but she wasn't as large as I was, and I guess she would have been the closest thing to my size compared to everybody else. And she was actually the first person to teach me fire, and she doesn't perform anymore, she's retired. I took classes for 3 years under Lola Vanella. If those of you who are familiar with burlesque, she is an internationally renowned burlesque performer, and I learned so much from her. And in the 3 years that I took classes with her, there was a lot of girls that come in and out of classes because burlesque is super fun and trendy, and a lot of girls want to learn about it, but then when they start getting involved in it, they realize there's more to it than they originally thought. And all of that time, there was not another girl there that it was my size. And so just being the only one was hard. It was really hard. Sometimes it was really hard to go to dance class knowing that, you know, as I'm doing some of these dance moves, parts of me are gonna jiggle that the other girls just don't have. Their parts don't jiggle like that. And, you know, being in front of a full-length mirror and seeing myself dancing this way in front of a full-length mirror in tight clothing, because when you go to dance class, you're basically wearing leggings and a fitted shirt so that you can see how your body moves as you're dancing. And so you really have to get comfortable with the way that you look and the way that your body moves. And that was really hard for me, especially in the beginning. It took a lot of guts to go. When I first started going, I brought one of my good friends, Stephanie, with me, and she went with me for like the first 4 to 6 weeks. And then after that, I was so hooked that even though she stopped going, I could just continue. That was the first thing. It was just really hard being the token chubby girl, the only one there. And I'm gonna drop in footage into this video. I've got footage of me performing with the other girls in group routines, and you'll see I'm the only one. I'm the only chubby girl. And it can be really hard because you know, you feel like, oh, everybody's watching you because you're the chubby girl. And, you know, I really put it on myself that I was gonna nail every single one of my choreography. I was gonna do the best that I possibly could, because people, the eye would naturally be drawn to me because I'm so physically different from everybody else. And I don't want them to think, oh, you know, the chubby girl can't keep up with the other dancers, or the chubby girl, you know, doesn't have the choreography down, or her costume isn't as good, or whatever reasons, because of all of the negative stereotypes with being plus size, that we're lazy, that we're not as talented, we can't dance, or we're not as good of a dancer, all of those things. And, you know, and these are all things that I dealt with as a child growing up, and dancing. And, you know, it was one of the reasons why I had stopped dancing, because I did not have the ballerina body. I did not have the dancer's body. And so when I hit adolescence and my hips grew out and my boobs grew out, my dance teachers basically started shoving me in the back corner because I didn't have the physical body that they were looking for. So it was really hard for me to keep going to classes. And it was that process of conquering that fear. It was that process of falling in love with dance and movement again, and body acceptance. And at that time, the burlesque community, it's different now, and I can only speak for St. Louis. It's a very different community now than it was when I first started almost 10 years ago. But at that time, it was really small. I mean, there was maybe 25 people that were performing burlesque on a regular basis. And they would do Lola would produce a show 4 times a year, and it would have everybody in the St. Louis that performed burlesque in a single show. So that'll tell you how small the community was. And at that time it was really loving. I mean, Lola was really encouraging, and you know, it felt like kind of like a female sorority. We were all sisters and embracing our body, embracing our sexuality, and just really claiming who we were. And it's not that way now, and that's really sad, but scenes change. You know, now it's like 4 or 5 times the size that it was when I first started. And because it's not that small little group anymore, it's not as friendly as a place as it was when I first started. And it was really hard for me at that time to go because I was a plus size girl. So girls getting started now in the St. Louis scene that are bigger girls, I can imagine it's probably much harder for them to get up the nerve to take the classes, or get up the nerve to get on stage and shake that booty, because it's not as much of a loving and embracing scene as it was when I first started. At one point I had spoken to Lola about how I was feeling a little discouraged, and I think she picked up on it because I was a bigger girl. I don't remember the exact conversation because this was a very long time ago, but she mentioned to me a burlesque performer by the name of Dirty Martini, and I'm going to insert pictures of her. She was such an inspiration. She is a full-figured plus-size girl, and she is an internationally renowned burlesque performer. She has won Miss Exotica and all of the competitions. She's been the #1 burlesque performer in the burlesque competitions like several years in a row. She even did a photo shoot with Karl Lagerfeld, which is crazy considering some of his personal opinions about plus size girls. I might have to do another video on that. But she did a photo shoot for him from Vogue magazine. So she was one of the first plus size women to ever have a spread inside Vogue magazine. I'm probably I'll put a couple pictures in. It was a long time ago, but she was a huge inspiration. I actually messaged her and I wasn't expecting a response back, and again, this was a long time ago, and she replied, and I saved her information, or saved her reply, and when I would have a really hard time or a really bad day, I would just reread her message and remember that she was a big girl like me, and she, you know, has all this success. She's, you know, been in Vogue magazine. She's been, you know, works with Karl Lagerfeld. She tours internationally, you know, works with Dita Von Teese and just all of the really big names in burlesque. And if she could do it, then that meant that I could do it. And so she was kind of the person that I really looked up to when I was first getting into burlesque, and I still look up to her. I still follow her, all of her social media and all of that. So that was one of the things that really helped me, was knowing that even though I might have been paving the way in my local scene in St. Louis, there was someone that had paved the way before, and someone I could look up to, basically. The downsides to being a plus-size burlesque performer. Besides the obvious costuming difficulties, when you're getting into burlesque, one of the first things you do is buy like cheap panties from either Walmart or Victoria's Secret, or, you know, just wherever, and you bedazzle them and you just cover them in rhinestones. But when you're a big girl, you can't just go buy cheap panties and cheap bras. I am a 38F, sometimes a 38G, depending on the company. My bras are not cheap, and I can't just go buy a bra from Walmart. They don't even make one in my size. So my bras are very expensive. They're probably like $50 a piece, and so just that in and of itself, it's very cost prohibitive. Burlesque is very cost prohibitive in a nutshell. But when you're plus size, a lot of the financial shortcuts that a lot of the girls can take to save money is not an option for you. A lot of the girls will thrift their costumes. They'll find like old prom dresses or old, you know, just old dance costumes at the thrift store and then augment them for burlesque costumes. And that again isn't usually an option when you're plus size because those things aren't available in a bigger size. Dance costumes in general. Sometimes you can just go buy a dance costume off of a dance website, except for that a dancer's large is about equal to a regular women's medium. And so when you're plus size, you can't even order from that site. You can't even order dance tights because they won't fit you. You can't order costumes. You can't order any dance gear because none of it's gonna fit you. So you really have to get creative and out of the box about what you're doing. A big thing is hosiery. Almost all of my performance hosiery comes from Torrid, and that's $15 a pair just for a pair of fishnets, versus you can go to, you know, the hair shop or, you know, anywhere and get regular fishnets for $5. Sometimes you can even find them at the dollar store, but I have to go to Torrid to get my fishnets. Dance fishnets. So there's a special type of dance fishnets that are Lycra, that are super stretchy and spandexy, and it's what a lot of showgirls use in Las Vegas, and it's kind of a trade secret. They don't make those big enough for plus size girls. So if you're kind of a plus size girl that's on the smaller end, because they're super stretchy, you might get them to work. But if you're a full-on big girl, they don't make them in your size. And that's just not something that you can do. It's not something available to you. Thigh highs is another one. I have a really big problem with thigh highs because my thigh highs don't go up to my thighs. I've got really big calves from dancing in heels, and just I'm got a curvy girl and the thigh highs only reach to the top of my knees, which is really frustrating because then my garter belt, the straps aren't long enough to reach my thigh highs. So also nude tights. So when another dance secret is to wear a pair of flesh tone matte nude pantyhose underneath your fishnets or underneath your regular stockings. This is to even out the skin tone, help keep your skin more firm, get, you know, high cellulite, things of that nature. And they have to be sheer to waist. They cannot have a control panty in these tights. Also with your fishnets or any other tights that you use for burlesque cannot have a control panty. Have you ever tried to find plus size tights, nylons, fishnets, anything without a control panty? Let me tell you, it's extremely difficult. You're trying to find the thing that does not exist because apparently every plus size girl wants a control panty in their tights. And let me tell you, you cannot wear control panty tights on stage because it'll show up and it'll ruin your costume. I know, because it happened to me. Because I grabbed the wrong pair by accident. So that's just costuming. It's just the whole costuming alone as a plus size girl can be a complete nightmare unless you're making everything from scratch, which you either need to be a really good seamstress or have a lot of money to pay someone else to do it for you. Things I've been told, you know, I'm hot for a fat chick, I have a pretty face, maybe if I lost some weight, I can't believe you got on stage wearing that. Man, you must have balls to get up and dress like that and get on stage in front of everybody and strip. Sometimes it was meant as a compliment, sometimes it was not. Oh, you look really good for your size. Or, I didn't know a big girl could move like that. Or, wow, you've got a lot of confidence for a big girl. You wouldn't believe the things that I've heard to my face, said behind my back, things that have happened to me for being a plus size girl. There's less photos of me. So when you're doing a burlesque show, there are show photographers. These are people that either are paid by the producer to be photographers or the venue, or they're specialty photographers that the producers bring in, you know, and there's different, you know, sometimes they get comp tickets, sometimes they get free drinks, sometimes they're actually paid, but they're taking entertainment photos of the burlesque show. just naturally. And this is not a single photographer that has done this. I've been photographed by thousands of photographers at shows, and it's just something that I've been, common theme that I've noticed is all my photos are either headshots. They almost never have a full body shot of them. And like I said, I don't even think this is something that photographers do intentionally, or at least not most of them do it intentionally. It's just that when you're a bigger girl and you're dancing, things move and things jiggle, and a lot of those pictures end up on the editing room floor. It happens. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not. I like to think that it's not intentional, but it is something that I have noticed quite often, that the full body shots just don't make the cut. And that's really frustrating as a performer, because when I'm submitting for a gig, either whether it's a festival or a private gig or something, they want photos of me, and they want, so they can advertise, they can market, things of that nature, and I don't have as many photos available of full body shots because of that very reason. Other things that have happened, less gigs. You know, I've been told that there wasn't room for a performer of my size at this particular show. Or I've been told that I'm not the kind of body type that they were looking for. A lot of times when they do open calls, they'll put measurements. They want you to be so tall and weigh so much. And it is very common in the industry that they're looking for a specific body type. A little while back, it was probably a couple months ago, there was a performer that was released from their contract in New Orleans, and the venue said it was because she was too heavy. She wasn't even a plus size girl. So can you imagine someone who is plus size, who's auditioning for a role at that venue? They're not even gonna get a chance. It doesn't even matter how amazing of a performer they are, just based off of their body alone. They're not gonna get a chance because they don't want somebody that is bigger in their show. And that's absolutely insane and crazy. I've got so much I can share about the burlesque world, but right now I just wanted to talk about being a plus size girl in the burlesque world and some of the things that I've experienced. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you very much. Comment down below. Have you ever experienced something about your body? I'm sure you have. And remember, resistance is futile. Join the collective, the Bad Kitten Collective. Thank you guys. Bye.